Hello everyone, it's Lizard, and today I'm bringing you my favorite build, Turbo Vengeance. It's a pretty famous build in my channel. I started working on this build like last summer, so basically I've been working on this build for almost a year now, pretty much. It all started with a conversation with a community member, Holy Coffee, when we find out that you could stack damage with Abyssal Echoes back in the day. That's something that you can no longer do. And then, Misha, who was another player, inspired me to play a lot of Sentinel, and well, I put a lot of hours into this build. Over the patches, they changed a lot of stuff, but I finally have an update for 0.8.1. Let's get to the build. Obviously, it's a Vengeance build. It's a melee Sentinel build. You can play with Void Knight, you can play with Sentinel, you can play with Forge Guard, with Paladin, like your whatever mastery you choose to go. Kind of like depends on what you want to do. There's gonna be a few things that you're gonna be changing depending on what class you choose to play. But I think the most optimal class to play at the moment, if you want to go for DPS and the two-handed playstyle, which is what I'm running, is the Void Knight, just because you get crazy damage. So the build, it's pretty hard to play, has a pretty high skill floor, mainly due to the use of Volatile Reversal. Reversal is this ability that makes you time travel back to where you were 4 seconds ago, and it's basically a huge part of the build. So if you can't play with this properly, the build is gonna suffer quite a bit. And basically you cast your orbs, you cast your anomaly to get some buffs that we will get into later, and then you start hitting. You have a lot of shred, you get a lot of attack speed thanks to volatile, as you can see, and you end up hitting the dummy for a shit ton of damage. So yeah, again, really fun build to play, really kitey. The reason I choose to play with a Sophnia is because, first of all, my Sophnia is really good. This weapon is legacy, but you can see it comes with elemental protections, but I won't be using, I haven't been using the elemental protections from this legacy weapon, just so I actually don't take advantage of items that you can no longer get since the game has changed. So everything that I have you can get in the game, and basically my weapon doesn't have a suffix because of this, because I'm trying to be as ethical as possible as I can. Again, the reason I used to choose a Sophnia instead of, for example, a one-handed weapon or an axe is weapon range. Vengeance scales with weapon range, so you can see right now, can't hit right, I can't reach the dummy, but if I equip the Sophnia, you're gonna reach the dummy. Right. So again, weapon range is pretty huge for this build, because this will allow you, if there's like multiple enemies, you only had a sword, right, or like a two-handed sword or something with a shorter range, you're only gonna be able to kill like the front row of enemies. Whereas if you're using a polearm, you're gonna be hitting multiple rows of enemies, which is obviously really handy when you're playing arena. Sophnia obviously comes with a melee crit chance, so again you can see that right now. Without this weapon I get basically no crit chance whatsoever. Even if I launch, I have like 20%, right? With anomaly I get a bit more, 25, but if I get this weapon I'm suddenly at 100% crit. So again, getting your Sophnia with a good implicit, a 7% implicit, is really important. You're most likely not gonna find a weapon this good, but you don't need it, you can just play with a tier 5, it's fine. Alright, let's get into the build. Bit of a long intro, but it's a build I love, and there's a few things that have to be explained. Volatile Reversal, really setup I used on pretty much all my builds. I use Volatile Reversal. You don't get the additional time. The reason you want the additional time is because the buffs from Volatile Reversal, the attack speed and the movement speed that you get, are given to you depending on how much time you traveled. So, if you want to get, for example, the bonus of attack speed, you can see that the attack speed we're gonna get it for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it's gonna fade out, right? If you only had like, if you didn't have these points, you would only get it for 2 seconds. And if you're able to do this, if you get these points and you get cooldown reduction and so on, you're able to basically get volatile reversal more than once. So you can see these buffs can double stack, even triple stack, if you're fast enough. And if you play properly and you reduce your cooldown by getting kills and so on. Same for the movement speed, you know, you can get, this build can get like, you know, with haste and you can get like 200% movement speed, you saw it there. So you can be really, really fast to kite really, really big. And obviously that adds a lot of like skill floor and a skill ceiling to the build, just because you gotta be able to move fast and play properly. That's pretty much it. You can get the dodge rating. You know, you're gonna be getting, you most likely want to use a dodge and potion belt. So, you know, if you can get some dodge here and there, it's gonna help you against like projectiles and so on in the arena. You could also go for the time rod, you could go for the enemy takes more damage, whatever you want to do, but this is what I like running. For vengeance, pretty straightforward. I have a +2 vengeance, so if you didn't have the +2 vengeance, you basically wouldn't use the shred and you would lose 1 point off here. But you want to get all the damage reduction and all of the multiplicative damage. So this is giving us 90% damage when we are under 50%. When we are under 50% health, but thanks to this we make it so we are above 50% health, which is always basically. So we get this big boy damage here, multiplicative and big boy damage there. If you had a +4 vengeance, you would lose a point here and you would make sure you get the physical shred conversion. But I only have a +2. But keep that in mind that you could lose this point, put a point here, extra point there, and then you're getting 50% physical shred, which boosts your damage quite a bit, even though you can get shred on the blessings. Again, this is your main damage, pretty much. For launch, you really need a crit chance, because again, Vengeance doesn't have any crit synergies, neither does Void Knight. So you need to be getting your crit from your weapon, your abilities, and so on. Obviously, you want the extra charge. You want all the armor, all the cooldown, and you want the invincibility, so you can use the iframes. So basically how it works is when you are flying with launch, while you're in the air you don't take damage. And you can do really, really crazy things with this. For example, you can launch volatile reversal and cancel it. You can see like mid-air, you can just cancel your dashes and stuff. And you can do really, really crazy like combos and you know, being able to just like cast immunity every like 1.8 seconds or with cooldown. It's pretty insane, but again, it requires you to time it properly. Again, the extra points, you can get whatever you want. I get it on the health game, because sometimes, you know, you dash over a group of 10 enemies, you hit them all, you know, you're gonna be getting 40 HP. Better than nothing. I don't really care about the damage or anything else. If you had some dexterity on your build, maybe you want this. It's not that useful because I have 0 dexterity, but there it is. Orb is a pretty interesting one. So you can see right now, my void resistance is 64. I'm getting all my void resistance, and I'm getting from these points and these points here. You can see it, but these points on the Sentinel tree. So basically, thanks to Orb, we can get the remaining void resistance that we need with this point here, without having to invest void resistance on our gear and so on. We get the 20% movement speed, which is really handy. We get the cast speed and the mana speed, so it's just like a bit faster to use. And then the most important thing is the global increased damage that we get to boost our damage from Vengeance, and the Dark Torrents, which creates the orbs. So basically what you're using Orb for is like when you cast Orb, all of these balls are gonna be seeking enemies, or they're gonna explode. So you can see if I have a lot of orbs like this, you can see how all of these orbs are hitting the dummy. All of these orbs are gonna be applying your chance to slow, your chance to chill, your chance to shred armor on hit, your physical shred stacks, your void shred stacks, your frailty chance, etc, etc. So basically, and you're gonna be proccing haste also if you decide to use the Quicksilver coil. You can see there, like when it touches, and when you're in arena, this like has like multiple explosions. You can get the extra movement speed right there, right? So that's thanks to Orb. So Orb is kind of like a buff that also allows you to apply all of your own hit effects. So when you actually go to hit with Vengeance, your Vengeance hits really hard. You can see like my normal damage is like, again, you know, if I crit, accruing for like 20k or whatever, but then my shadows hit for 60, and if you apply all your shred, you know, your damage keeps ramping and ramping and ramping and ramping thanks to shred and so on, and you can get really crazy amounts of damage. You can see how it ramps up, and you can get, I don't know, like 140k damage and stuff if you apply all of your shreds, all of your echoes and so on. So keep that in mind. Orb is more than just orb. It's allowing you to apply all of your on-hit effects easily and reliably. There is a version with this build that instead of using orb, you can use sigils. If you decide to do that, because you don't really want orb, or you find it too like screen cluttery or whatever, you can just run sigils. With sigils, you just run like all the bonus damage, the bonus damage, and the global melee damage. I like using the instant cast, and then you can use the rest on duration, more sigils, whatever you want. But these points are really good, so every time you cast a sigil, you will get damage. But the build does so much damage this way with good gear that I think orb, just the utility you get from orb is actually insane. Really good, really good. And then anomaly. Anomaly is gonna depend on your tree. I have a +2 anomaly, so I'm getting these points on a cooldown reduction. Basically, I find out that normally I would just like cast cooldown reduction on my helmet, but getting a +2 to tier 5 cooldown reduction is 14% cooldown, and +2 to anomaly, if you put the points on cooldown, right, which I'm doing, is like basically getting a, well, 20% cooldown, because it's 10 per point, so it's actually better than just crafting cooldown reduction on your helmet. It's obviously harder to get. Again, I think another, depending on what your gear is, how much crit chance you have and so on, you're gonna be distributing your points a bit different. Early on, you wanna be putting most of your points here on the crit chance, because you're not gonna be able to reach 100% crit chance if you don't have really good gear and crit everywhere, you know, on your rings and so on. So, you know, you might want to drop points of here on the cooldown. Make sure you cap your crit chance first, and once you start non-relying on these points, you can start going into the increase leech rate, increase health leech, sorry. That is really huge, because this is multiplying all our leech by 200%. And well, I made a lot of calculations with this, but right now this is my current ratio of damage. I'm doing 60% void 61% of my damage is void, 39% is physical, and my total lifesteal with the calculations of the lifesteal is 62%. So, you know, if I hit a guy for 10,000, I'm lifestealing say 6,200. So a shit ton of lifesteal, a shit ton of damage, and that's gonna be the main mechanic, is gonna keep you alive. Again, there's a lot of math behind this build, a lot of time invested. So yeah, this will be like your end game survivability nodes, but early on you want to make sure you're doing damage and you're critting, and you're not gonna be getting hit that hard, so you can get away without you know, focusing on the leech. So well, that's the passives. Again, I've played a lot around this, and I'm pretty happy with this. Maybe, you know, patches change, things change, and I will have to adjust it again one more time. But I'm really happy with this so far. And yeah, let's move into the passives. The passives, pretty straightforward. You know, you want to grab the strength and the void resistance. Strength is damage. The fire resistance is a bit useless for you. You're most likely gonna be overcapped anyway, because you're a sentinel and you get fire resistance fucking everywhere. But the void resistance is really nice, mainly because, you know, you can just cap your void resistance with these other points here and the orb, right? And strength is damage and is armor. So you can see, like, when I launch and when I get my buff from, I have some buffs that give me more armor. We're gonna be sitting around like 50% armor with a 200 with no armor on our gear, so it's actually pretty decent, even though armor is not that strong anymore. Obviously you need armor clad on any sentinel build, just because the damage reduction is really important. You get these 2 extra points on vitality, just some HP, you know, it's 20 HP. You could put these points into the melee physical flat damage if you want, it's whatever you want, but you want to get to the health gain and the mana gain. Obviously, you know, when you use your abilities, you're gonna be using mana, and then Vengeance will give you your mana back. So, and the health is also pretty nice, you know, if you're low HP and you just vengeance the air, you're gonna be getting some healing, especially with the amount of attack speed you get. So keep that in mind. Then you want to go into Void Knight mainly. You want to make sure you grab the resistances early on. World Eater is a must-have, really, really important. Again, the lifesteal from this node is the only reason you can stay alive in high waves if you play properly, obviously, because you know if you take too much damage, you're just gonna die. But you will see it in the gameplay if you watch my 400 plus push, which is pretty damn fucking hard to do. And again, you will see how effective the lifesteal is. Again, we're doing a lot of void damage, we're scaling void damage and some physical damage. Again, all of the flat damage we can get from the tree is good. Execute helps a lot with, you know, bosses, hard enemies in arena and so on, you know, killing things like Frostworm or enraged enemies, you know, like being able to just like kill them at 15% is pretty worth it. You don't need this, but I like it. It speeds up arena and monolith by a lot, so I recommend it, but you could use these points into, you know, here if you prefer or something else. Then obviously you want the strength and the health. Again, we're stacking health on this build. We don't get as much health as other classes. Like, my gear is really insane, that's why my health is so high. But if I had this same gear on a druid, I would have 5000 health because of all the passives and all the synergies. I'll show my gear briefly at the end of the video if you guys are curious. We want the echoes. I don't take this extra point here because losing attack speed feels actually pretty horrible with a Sofnia, with the polearm. But if you were playing the same build with a sword, a 200 sword, which you can do, as long as you have a good sword, you know, if you have something, for example, something like this, if you had something like this with a lot of flat crit, you could play with a sword if you prefer it. Keep in mind the sword is gonna be faster. You're gonna have more nodes for swords in the Sentinel tree with the attack speed like these ones, right? You could grab these nodes here for if you were playing with a sword for the extra attack speed, and then you could afford getting this. But keep in mind that obviously you need to get a good sword with like at least tier 6 or something melee crit chance, so you can compensate for not having a polearm implicit crit chance. But again, something like this you could play with. But again, I like the polearm for the range regardless, so it doesn't matter. What else? I've been experimenting a bit with Void Ages. Void Ages is basically when you get hit, the next 100 damage you take, you take reduced damage. I think it's pretty bad, but to be honest, I don't know I have enough damage, and it's the only way to get some sort of mitigation here and there. I asked the devs a lot about how these mechanics work, because I don't really know if you know, if the mitigation affects the entire damage when it breaks, or if it only affects like the first 100 damage you take, or I don't know. I've been using it, I've been having success with it. It looks pretty cool, but you could not use these 5 points. I've been experimenting a bit with this. You could use these points and just put them on the movement speed and the void damage. It's not a big deal if you don't want to experiment with this. But I don't know. I wanted to get as tanky as possible, so I played a bit with this. Everything else is best in slot for sure, but this is a bit of an option. Then this you just want to unlock the 100% increased void damage, so you grab these 4 points that you need. Again, we are not blocking because we are not beta players, you know, we're alpha chats, and we go around with a 200, so it is what it is. And there are your remaining points, you know. I'm getting this because strength, again, is damage, 4% per point of strength. So, you know, we're getting quite a bit of damage there, plus the increased melee damage, which boosts our void and our physical damage. And you know, overall it's pretty decent points. Again, you could not use this, and you could go a bit more aggressive without getting the armor from the strength into Sorrow and Steel or into Dread, whatever you want. But I found this is the most balanced tree that I've figured out. I spent so much time doing this build. I've been playing this build for like a year almost. I tried pretty much everything, and this is by far what's felt the best. And then going into gear finally. We can talk a bit about my gear and I have some pretty crazy shit. Obviously, you want to have vengeance idols. These idols used to be bugged and used to be multiplicative, so the build was doing 200k hits before they got fixed, but they got fixed recently. You know, you're still doing good damage. It's just not like bugged anymore. So again, you want to get 4 of these. I mean, the closest they are to 54, the better. I have 4 53s, which is kind of funny. And ideally, on your suffix, you either want chance to shred armor on hit, or you could get maybe some elemental resistances or anything that can give you some utility. But the most important thing is getting the Vengeance. And then for your prefix, for your Ornate Idol, on the prefix you want to increase echo damage when a skill echoes. Basically, when you're playing Void Knight, when you attack something from time to time, you're gonna echo. You're gonna see, right? This black thing is the echo. So that black attack basically is gonna mirror your Vengeance, but it will get this extra bonus. And obviously the melee void damage is pretty good. Again, this idol is pretty insane. We rolled really high. My gear is really crazy. So yeah, but for gear, I still don't know what I'm gonna do with these gloves on the suffix. Maybe I go more HP. Maybe I get some armor shred. Maybe I get some frailty. I have no idea what I'm gonna do. Maybe I go also hybrid leech. I haven't crafted on them yet because they're so good that I still need to figure out. And funny enough, the implicit is 14%, and it could be 15, and my endurance is at 59. So I'm actually 1 off endurance because the fucking base is 14. I don't know. Maybe I try to get new gloves. We'll see. Maybe I wait to drop something, some exalted item, and just like invest my currency and my shards and shit into, and my time into trying to get some GG gloves. Everything else I have is pretty GG. And I have these like really good boots with crit avoidance. You're getting the rest of your crit avoidance from your implicits on the chest piece and the helmet. Again, really crazy, really crazy helmet. This took me so much time to get, like basically the entire patch. This I had from before, just HP, strength, you know, full health. I have a lot of this that I just re-roll, trying to get like a perfect roll. This one is pretty good. I was trying to get even more flat health, but we broke it like re-rolling, sadly. My amulet is pretty good. Again, you're just seeing like HP everywhere, tier 20s everywhere. Again, I've invested like 2,000 hours on this character overall since I started playing. So this is pretty top-notch gear, and there's a lot of time between this character. And I have this really crazy belt. This belt is pretty crazy. Ideally, you want the void damage with also dodge and potion. But you can see my HP is 3,200. If I take this belt off, it's 2,500. So yeah, this belt is giving you... this belt is giving you a lot of HP, okay? It's like a 600 HP belt. Pretty crazy. And the more flat HP you get on your gear, the better it's gonna be because of the percentage increase. I'm a pretty normal ring. I just need to get my resistances here and there. HP, my shit is really high roll everything too. Like I have a lot of rings like this, and I just re-roll them until I high roll the HP and I high roll the reses and everything. Then I have this this relic. This relic is pretty crazy. You guys know how I mentioned how I'm not using the resistances from my weapon to be ethical. Well, you can see that this weapon alone is giving me full elemental resistance. And with the boots, the implicit, you basically get full fire, full everything. If you don't have a tier 7 elemental resistance, it's really easy to solve. All you gotta do is, instead of using a silver ring, just use a gold ring, you know, and you're gonna compensate for the elemental resistances that you don't get. But since I got lucky enough to get a tier 7, you know, I can get away with getting the movement speed from the silver ring, which is not that important, but keep that in mind. And yeah, again, my weapon is really crazy. My idols are really crazy. It's really well geared character. Again, if you want to see how to play this build properly, I could make like a proper guide about actually just the mechanics of this build and just showing it like situations where how to learn to play it. But again, you know, I made a really good push recently on the ladder, like that I'm really proud of. So again, that's gonna be linked in the description. You can check that out. And I hope you guys enjoy the build. It's great fun. Yeah, thank you for watching, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Bye.